Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Dill. Auburn rolling into 2025. The boys have been rather vocal that we're believers in Auburn going into the 2025 year. We've been met with plenty of pushback. And look, Dill, I ain't necessarily surprised that we're getting pushback. The play on the field from Hugh Freeze and Auburn over the first 2 years hasn't exactly inspired a ton of confidence. If you were on the fence, or if you are confused on the optimism around this football team going into 2025, this is the episode that accurately depicts the confidence that I have in this football team. As you start to rank and grade the position groups for this Auburn team in 2025, you start to realize that, yeah, we got some question marks about certain aspects of this football team, and we're going to get into it. But when you start grading out some of the best position groups on this roster, you start to realize that those position groups are some of the best, not only in the SEC, but in the country rolling into 2025. Fired up to get into it. Before we do it, as always, to the Auburn fans, appreciate you guys. I look at this episode, and it's like a culmination of the last 2 years of us talking Auburn, like all the victories on the recruiting trail, all the victories in the transfer portal. It all culminates in a beautiful looking roster on paper going into 2025. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section because these are your grades. I certainly have some pushback on some of them too. Would love to hear from you guys. Appreciate it. Without further ado, Dill, one I don't disagree with, wide receiver room, getting an A+. We don't give a lot of A+. This wide receiver room gets it, and I agree with it. I'll give you the T-box here. What makes this wide receiver room not one of the best in the SEC, but early in the country rolling into 2025?
And I think the first thing you look at is the top end skill is obvious. Like Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton. Eric Singleton, I don't even think anyone really knows how good he can be.
So good.
That Georgia Tech offense didn't exactly have a great passing attack once Haynes King started to get banged up. I mean, unique with the ball in his hands, can make things happen down the field, really, really complete. But I look, you have those two top dogs, if you will. It's a really well-rounded group. Like you have a guy in Malcolm Simmons who you can throw the ball to behind the line and make good plays with. You have a guy in Horatio Fields who is kind of maybe your fourth guy, if you will. Such a dependable, steady wide receiver from Wake Forest coming over in the portal. And then Perry Thompson sitting there at 5. You don't know what he is yet, but obviously the talent's there. So I just look, it's really deep. It's well-rounded. You have your stars. You have your big dogs. I really don't see a hole in this way.
There's no hole like that. That's the whole point of it, right? You look at the wide receiver duo at the top in Cam Coleman and Eric Singleton and say they ain't many better, if any. And then the thing that I appreciate the most, and you talked about it, it's well-rounded. Like Cam Coleman working vertically down the field, there's not many better that work vertically down the field in Cam Coleman. And look, he's not a one-trick pony. He can do other things, but his presence 20-plus yards down the field is a little bit different than any other pass catcher across the country. And Eric Singleton is just a guy you can use whatever way you want. His ability to win vertically because of that speed and the yards after the catch ability, it's a room that has so many different skill sets, so many elite skill sets, and the depth is in. We're Michigan fans. Perry Thompson would be the wide receiver 1 on Michigan rolling into 2025. He's probably in the 5 spot. And then there's been a ton of buzz around freshman Sam Turner where it's hard for me to see him getting on the football field, but apparently Auburn loves him. The only knock you might have the tight end positions, maybe not. Dill, I think you'll see a bunch of 4 wide receiver sets. Like you have all of this talent in the room and say, if you are Hugh Freeze, you're trying to get as many of these pass catchers on the football field at the same time as you can. Number 2, look, I think I have a position group that I put above them, but you're going with the secondary, A-. I don't necessarily disagree with the grade. I think this is a very, very solid secondary that very well could be an A because it's a little bit young, but man, that young talent in the 2024 year absolutely balled out for Auburn. You're returning a good chunk of those guys. It's a very important position group in this conference. Like with the elite wide receiver talent that you see at Alabama or at LSU or at Florida, you need defensive backs who can deal with those dogs. I think Auburn has the group to do it in the 2025 year.
Yeah, and this was one that I was really tempted to put in A. It's again, you probably need to still see that development, that step. But you talk about a crew that was basically playing with 4 guys who are all first or second year players and playing at a really high level. The safety duo to me is right up there with anyone in the country.
Yes,
I
agreed.
love Sylvester Smith and Caleb Harris. I think they're both awesome, awesome players. If that cornerback room, if Can Lee can get like, he is the one maybe to me that didn't take the step
Take
you
this.
maybe want.
Yeah,
I
I'd say
think as
that.
a true freshman,
Yeah,
he was so good.
yeah.
He's good as a sophomore for sure, but like, is he going to start playing like an elite first rounder? He's kind of the guy I'm looking at to push this group over the edge because there's something. I think there's another gear he can get to.
100% agree. And then the other thing is, Dill, if it's not him, it could be Rand Strader coming from the MAC. I mean, this is a kid that his numbers played a ton of football, and I get jumping off from the G5s to the SEC. That ain't easy. Here's the thing with the secondary: the depth is insane. They went out and got Rayshon Pleasant, who I like from Tulane. Dill, I don't even know if he's going to be in the 2 deep. One of the other reasons to believe in Auburn is, look, although their starters last year were good and they probably didn't play up to the talent level that they had on the roster in 2024, you could tell that the depth of this program was still not where it needed to be. Going into 2025, especially with some of these top end units, the depth is insane. Like we talked about it at the wide receiver position, we're talking about it the same way in the secondary. You got guys that are in the 3 deep that probably start on a decent amount of Power 4 programs across the country. Number 3, defensive line, Dill, the most underrated. This is the reason that I'm a believer in Auburn. I would almost consider giving them an A. Now, I understand the A-, and we'll get into maybe some of the knocks that we see on this unit. You talk about why Auburn has the ability not just to be a 7 or 8 win team, but a team that can win 9 or 10 games. And I believe they have that juice. Now, is it going to happen? We'll see. But I think they have the ability to. It's because they look like the best teams in the SEC along the line of scrimmage. This defensive line, the combination of high school recruiting and using the transfer portal, this has a chance to be a unit in the 2025 year.
In the edge room, you love. The edge room to me is kind of like an AA plus unit because you have Keldrick Falk, who I think is a top 15 level, like NFL draft pick level player.
Yes.
I think Kieran Crawford to me is one of those guys who just slept on and doesn't get the attention he deserved.
Agreed.
I thought he took a big step. And then you have some good young guys like Williams, Jamonte Waller. It's all about the inside. I think everyone kind of knows that for Auburn. And frankly, I think it's, do you get a Malik Autry or Jordan Crawford, one of those guys playing at a serviceable level? Because you got your guy in Malik Blockton. I think Jamison Travis is a very, very solid player. Are you going to get one of those young freshmen to come up and play at a pretty high level?
Yeah, and it doesn't necessarily need to be like, they don't need to be first team all SEC as a freshman. We just need solid rotation because you're right that the numbers in the middle of that defensive line may be a little bit thin.
Because the portal additions, like, they're solid for sure, but I think everyone kind of sees like the guys who Auburn have on their roster from high school are quite a bit better than those portal additions. So again, you get Malik Autry or Jordan Crawford playing at a high level, or like, again, not like, again, you're right, not all SEC, but a good, solid, dependable.
Can they play 20 plus snaps a game where we can rely on them to do their job? It is probably the best way I'd probably put it. The one guy you glossed over that I'd like to highlight is Malik Blockton. What's the step from him going into year 2? Because when you look at Auburn last year, that defensive line was slept on. But it was a really good unit last year. The one knock you probably had was they didn't have the difference maker in the middle of the defensive line. You know, guys like Isaiah Rakes, they were good at the job they were asked to do, like taking on double teams and 2-gapping, but they weren't difference makers. They weren't massive presences, especially in the pass rush. Can Malik Blockton be that guy for Auburn in year 2? Because he's probably the guy. If you're looking for a difference maker to emerge, it's probably Malik Blockton. And Dill, I thought he looked awesome as a freshman, clearly playing undersized. The body type wasn't quite there, but I thought he looked damn good. Now the body looks the part. Can he become an all SEC guy, which I don't think's crazy to put that expectation on this kid going into 2025. Dill, number 4, offensive line, B+. I give it an A-. I think you're sleeping on the offensive line a little bit.
This is a feel thing. I'll start. This is a little bit of a feel thing. Like, it's a really good unit. I think the continuity is really good. You bring in a couple of guys, especially Xavier Chaplin. You probably wanted your true left tackle piece. Xavier Chaplin has that in his game. I think, again, he's probably got to take a step as well, but he certainly looks the part physically, and he has all the tools to be a great left tackle. This is still a unit to me that Is it crazy to say it's been underperforming for the past couple of years, especially last year? I thought it was a unit that was bringing back a lot of guys. I don't think
Yeah.
they quite played as well as I would like to see. That to me is a unit that, again, right now, I like the construction of it. I think you have the continuity, you have the talent now. It's a unit that I still need to see it from, though, I think.
I think that's fair, and I think the shortcomings of this offensive line last year were in pass protection. Like Percy Lewis was a liability out there, man.
Yeah, he
I
was.
thought we had high expectations for him, but when he was going up against some of those higher caliber SEC edge rushers, he just didn't have the feet to make it work. Can you get that for? Here's the thing: can you get Xavier Chaplin to play like a first round NFL draft pick, where there's legitimate buzz that this could be that? And can he stay healthy? Because you've had to do this thing with Dylan Wade where you're asking him to play so many different positions and moving him around, which one of your stalwarts that you have to move around every single week is not great to having consistent offensive line play. Can it stay healthy? Can you get quality tackle play? Mason Murphy's another question mark too. I think Mason Murphy is solid. Can he make it happen? Because it was a little bit of a
I
roller.
think it's going to be a Xavier Miller person. I think Xavier Miller's the better tackle. I think Mason
Okay,
Murphy is an inside guy. That's where I think
I
he'd
agree.
be at his best. Xavier
Yeah,
Miller, I actually thought played pretty well for Auburn
sure.
last year. So I look, you're probably right. It's if Xavier Chaplin gives them big time SEC football, this is a really,
A
really good
minus.
unit.
Yeah,
But you've still probably seen some inconsistencies from his game that I don't know that I'm totally comfortable putting it in that
agreed.
range, if you
Fair,
will.
fair enough. And here's the last thing I say with this offensive line deal: B plus. That's about one of the higher grades that you'll see preseason for these SEC offensive lines because the, the SEC offensive line play this year, it has some question marks, even from the programs that you normally feel good about, like Georgia. Georgia was just not good up front last year. Now they're replacing a ton of guys that are going to the NFL draft. You can talk very similar things about Texas or LSU. Dill, I might say Florida might have the offensive line that I trust the most in this conference rolling into 2025. And I'll say this: Auburn ain't that far behind.
They're in the
Like,
conversation for sure.
as much of the conversation goes to the roster building that Hugh Freeze has done, especially in the wide receiver room, like that's where everybody talks about. Like the Cam Coleman went on the recruiting trailer, like Keandre Lambert-Smith in the portal, Eric Singleton this year. That's all everybody wants to talk about. This team along the line of scrimmage, I think, has the ability to be one of the better line of scrimmage programs in the conference. And that's where you win games. Hugh Freeze knows that more than anybody else. I think Auburn has a chance at being one of the best line of scrimmage programs in this conference in 2025. Number 5 linebacker, little bit of projection. You gave him a B, little bit of a projection here. It probably lies with, hey, how good is DeMarcus Riddick going to be this year? What's your okay? Let's start with DeMarcus Riddick. Well, what do you expect from this kid in 2025?
High expectations. I love him. I think he's a good athletic linebacker.
Yeah,
You're right. This is a big projection for him because
yeah,
I like what they did with Caleb Wheatland in the
yeah.
portal. I think that was a big get because he does set your floor kind of where you want it to be. It was,
Which you needed.
yeah, you definitely need it because then you're relying on guys who
Hadn't
Robert
played.
Woodyard, like you haven't seen probably enough of to really love as your second linebacker.
Yeah,
DJ Barber, again, young player that you haven't seen a ton from. But you're right. It's all about DeMarcus Riddick because you know what Caleb Wheatland's going to be. Good, solid linebacker play. Not going to
yeah.
give you anything great necessarily. DeMarcus Riddick needs to play at a really high level. And frankly, he's got the tool set to
Oh
do
yeah.
it. That athleticism, I think he's good physically taking on blocks for the most part. But he's just got to play a little bit faster. I think just his understanding the game and playing at the speed you want your middle linebacker to play at is
Yep.
probably where he's going to get to.
Yeah. Can he be an all conference guy? There's a chance. And if that does hit, I mean, you're looking at a really dominant front seven. Number 6, quarterback. The story of Auburn, at least in my opinion. I think everything around Jackson Arnold is in place. And Dill, you gave it a B, I'm guessing, because of the presence of Deuce Knight as well. Just Jackson Arnold, what's your confidence level in Jackson Arnold in 2025?
He's one that I wrestle with, and I really don't know what to think because we just talked about Oklahoma. Like their offense was so broken in every manner. Like the wide
Yes.
receiver play was, they were all hurt. They
Yeah.
weren't playing well. Their offensive line was probably the worst in the SEC.
Yep.
And then Jackson Arnold wasn't really helping the situation by turning the football over. So he's one, I think he's going from like one end of the spectrum, like nothing around him,
Yeah.
to a lot of help.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see what he can do because there was one thing I thought he gave them, and that was a little bit of like moxie and gamer to him. Like there were some games where, again, things weren't always working, and he'd turn the ball over sometimes. But there, like in that Alabama game, like that's like winning football from your quarterback when
Yeah.
things aren't necessarily going well around you.
What I'm excited for Jackson Arnold is last year for Oklahoma to win games, he had to play like A+ level because it just was such a joke around him. We only need B. If you get B level play from Jackson Arnold in 2025, this Auburn offense is going to be quite good. We don't need him to go out and win the Heisman Trophy. We just need him to be a guy that can get the ball to your playmakers in space. Now, what's unique about it is he does offer that 5-star upside. Look, this kid was a 5-star coming out of high school for a reason. He can make all the high-level throws you need him to make. I don't think he needs to do it in the 2025 year. If he
Well,
can,
I think you kind of want him to be able to do it. You want to be able to play that way on offense because your wide
yeah, fair.
receivers say you should be able to do it. So I look
Yeah.
when he
Okay.
was playing in that bowl game against Arizona in his true freshman year, you saw him spraying the ball around, making high level
Yeah.
throws, doing
Yeah.
some really good things. You want him playing that way because that was the frustrating part last year with Auburn from the quarterback spot is they just weren't getting anything that was elevating at all. It was just like so safe. It was so scared. I think you want Jackson Arnold playing like with that like aggressiveness because you don't want to waste this wide receiver room, and he's got that ability. I don't really know exactly what to make of Jackson Arnold. It's really hard to
I
evaluate.
don't
It's
either.
like, I almost think you just got to throw away last year for him because
Yeah,
was broken.
that's what I'll say is I'm higher on him than most because I think people just look at the box score from last year and say, yeah, it wasn't great, but you gotta provide some context, and it was so bad around him. It's really hard to evaluate. All right, number 7, last one, running back. It's a solid B. I think I'm okay with that. Maybe B- just because like
You
do you
got
have
your
that
one.
guy you can lean on? What'd you say?
I said, do you have your one? That's like
Yeah.
the frustrating part about it.
Yeah, and here's the thing with that. I don't think it matters that much. Obviously, you want a running back one when you can get a running back one. This is just not going to be the engine of your offense. Even if you had Jarquez Hunter coming back, who's a legit dog, I don't even think Jarquez Hunter ideally would not be the engine of the offense. You have a top 3 wide receiver in the country. That's what the focal point of this offense is going to be. Can we get solid running back play? I think you should from Damari Alston, Jeremiah Cobb, or Darrell Robinson. I don't think it's going to be great. It's going to be B, but I don't think that matters. And look, if it does matter, that's probably a bad sign because that means your passing attack ain't doing what it needs to do. I like it. Did a lot.
One
Not
thing I think you like if you're an Auburn fan, and again, maybe you disagree, the quarterback's kind of that one that if someone gave it a C, I wouldn't like totally
yeah,
fight it because like I could
no,
see that point of view.
yeah,
But I look, you just don't have any of those like D+ rooms or
I
those
agree.
C rooms. Like it's like you don't have those rooms that you're coming into like, oh good God, what are we gonna get from that?
Outside of the quarterback position, this team's going to be solid. And now it's not ideal that the biggest question mark on your team's quarterback, but outside of that
It's
position,
talented though. You like the room
yeah,
is like you got two
you got 2
five
5
stars who
stars.
are really
Yeah.
good players. None in Ashton Daniels, who
No,
I don't
stop,
want to see him playing that.
stop.
I didn't hate what he was doing for Stanford last.
No, then you get into the Jackson Arnold Oklahoma. It was just like we're cobbling together. No, I don't
Oh,
think,
that's true, probably.
I think ideally Ashton Daniels, we appreciate you giving depth to the room. Don't really want to see it because then if you do see Ashton Daniels, probably being in a bad spot, and he's not a quarterback that can maximize the wide receiver.
That's fair.
All right, we'll get out of here on that. This team, man, the depth chart, the roster, it's awesome, and I want to see it come together because I think Hugh Freeze has operated at a very high level during the offseason, but it doesn't matter. Can't put it together on Saturdays. Appreciate you guys. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Appreciate it. And we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.